Hello, my name is Chrissy Hodges. I'm a mental health advocate, particularly for OCD, and the nicknamed Pure OCD, which is the type of OCD where you have intrusive thoughts, typically of a sexual, violent, blasphemous nature, health OCD, ROCD, things that, intrusive thoughts that are really terrifying, and you have mental rituals that go with it. And today I wanted to talk about, first and foremost, if you're on Instagram, follow me at PureOChrissy. I talk so much about OCD and mental health in general and, just trying to break down the stigma, a lot of the really important topics that happen there. Anyway, so I would love to see you over at Instagram. Today I wanted to talk briefly about one of the most common statements that I hear in doing peer support, and also that I say when I am in the middle of being triggered by OCD, and a couple other little myths I'm going to throw in there toward the end. This one in particular is, if only I could go back before OCD. If only I could go back to the day before OCD, the hour before OCD hit. And this is common because of ta-da! Black and white thinking. Here we are again. This is what OCD is. It's black and white thinking. If we aren't over here in this area, we think that there's an entire polar opposite that we're going to be. When in reality, living with OCD, there's so much more in between. This is the way things are and this is the way things are, but we can't see it when we're in it. If you have OCD, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a dire need to prove either the black and white thinking, one is right, one is wrong. We don't realize that freedom lies in the gray, and that's what's so tough. So when I get into a space, and I felt this way for a very long time, especially before I knew it was OCD or I got any sort of treatment whatsoever, is I used to think, if only I could go back before the day it showed up, and then when any other theme would hit that would supersede the theme before that made things worse, I would think, oh my gosh, if only I hadn't done this or said this, then maybe this would happen. Well, that means in reality, if I go back, I would be 7. And then before HOCD hit, I would be 13, and I don't ever want to go back to those days. But the bottom line is that in our brains, because we're being mentally tortured by a malfunction that's going on, that's causing us to perceive things differently, we're responding with compulsions, we're stuck in the cycle, we are unable to see, with OCD or not, life is shitty at times. And again, that black and white thinking comes in of, if only I didn't have OCD, my life would be all rainbows and unicorns. No, it wouldn't. And that quote, life is shitty, comes from Dr. Stephen Phillipson, world-renowned OCD therapist. The way that I like to look at it, and I remember when I am in a trigger and I think to myself, oh my gosh, for the last 3 years, life was so great, and then I got triggered. I would do anything to go back. I also have to remember that life does not roll out the red carpet to you when OCD is managed. But that's what our brain will tell us, again, because it doesn't understand that there can't just be really good or really awful. There actually can be this in between. I was talking to someone a week or so ago, or a couple weeks ago, and they said something that really resonated with me. They said, I just want to feel fine. So we all have this definition of what fine is, and I often can relate this to having a sore throat. You know when you have that really bad sore throat and you cannot even swallow your own saliva without it feeling like knives are stabbing you? When I get this way, I always think to myself, I'll never take advantage of my throat again. Like, I will always appreciate it every single day. Every time I eat, I'm going to thank everything that's holy that my throat works. Yeah, until it's not sore anymore, and then I totally forget all about it. Because when I'm in that suffering of pain, I just think I've taken advantage for all those years when I could just eat and drink things and everything was okay. If only I could go back. But the truth is, and I've said this before on other videos, is that we have this incredible power as human beings to heal. And we do have the opportunity to get the help that we need, even for OCD, which feels so real and it feels so torturing, to get the right treatment, which is exposure response prevention. There are workbooks out there too. There's a lot of informational stuff out there that you can start learning about this, but you can get better and recovery is possible. So the hard part is a lot of times people will hold on to this notion of, well, I just want to go back to who I was before. I want to get treatment and go back to who I was before. Now I'm going to say something and you may think, why did she just say this? And I hate her. But the reality is you can't. You won't. You'll never go back to who you were before OCD. Now your black and white brain over here, you're thinking, oh my God, she's saying I'll never be happy again. So just hang on and let me talk to you about that for a little bit. Trauma happens when we have symptoms that come up. Symptoms are devastating. They rock our entire world. It changes the way we view things. We're surviving every single day until we know what it is, until we can get treatment, until we're in a position where we can get treatment. And it's hard when OCD comes on so strongly, and maybe it even breaks for a little while and you're like, yay, I'm cured forever. And then it comes back, and every single time we're re-traumatized a little bit more. It's not only traumatic to experience the symptoms, but when it comes to sexual, violent, blasphemous, intrusive thoughts, we're traumatized by the actual thoughts. We're traumatized by who we think we could be or might be because we're capable of these thoughts, which we all know if you've done your research, everybody has intrusive thoughts. Ours just get stuck. Just wanted to remind you of that. That's not reassurance, it's just reality. So we get traumatized by the fact that we think the thoughts may mean something, which is how we got into this mess to begin with. We assigned meaning to random thoughts. And that's how we start obsessing and doing compulsions day in and day out to try to prove or disprove something that you're never going to win. So with that said, trauma changes us. Trauma changes the way that we view the world. It changes the way we see ourselves in the world. It changes the way we think the world views us. It is research proven that trauma changes our brain. So it is impossible to go back and think to ourselves, I'll never deal with this again. I never have to think about this again. And in reality, OCD is a lifelong illness. Before another huge red flag goes off, and that's terrifying to hear, that doesn't mean you cannot learn to manage it and be able to live a happy, fulfilling, productive life. I live a fulfilled, productive life. OCD goes along on the ride for me, and I deal with it sometimes on a daily basis, just in recognizing my thoughts. Sometimes I get triggered, but it doesn't have to be that daunting feeling of, if this is a lifelong illness, I'm always going to be tortured. That does not have to be the case, and I want to tell you that 100% right now. So I know it feels like I can't believe I got this horrible disorder and I have these horrible thoughts and I'm going to have to live with this the rest of my life. Why me? All of these feelings are normal. All of these feelings are natural. We all grieve the illness. We all grieve the person that we wanted to be, the person we think that we could have been if we didn't have it, the person we now have to be with it. But OCD does not have to define you, and you do not have to define OCD. That is your own journey to go through and figure out. I can't do that for you. I can't tell you how to do it. And I had to go through it on my own too. I am here to tell you it was worth it. I do not feel anymore that I wish I could go back to before OCD hit. I'm not grateful for OCD. I don't wake up every day and like, yay, I'm so glad this happened to me. But I certainly have found a way to cope with it and a way to be able to connect with so many of you that it really has become something in my life where I think I am the person I am now because of it. You can get there too. You are not the exception, but OCD might tell you that you are. So just so you know, if that's rattling around in your brain right now, I just called it. So I also wanted to talk about, I have to be mindful of the time. I have about 10 more minutes. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this. A myth that a lot of times people will say is, if only I had this fear, things would be so much easier. My fear is worse than everybody else's. Okay, so there are a lot of OCD fears and intrusive thoughts that come with a little bit more shame and guilt than others. I'm just gonna say that, and people can disagree with me all they want, but yes, there are some that come with a little bit more shame. And a lot of it is because there's the shame in not being able to tell people. There's the shame in, I can't believe this is latching on to people I love, things like that. But the bottom line is, OCD is OCD. When you go into therapy, you've got to learn that in order to get better. If you cannot let go of, my fear is worse than everybody else, you are going to have a hard time being able to pull away from identifying what you're going through as an actual illness versus this being part of who I am. That's what you have to let go. Now, I know it feels real, and I know your body starts reacting in real time. Hello, the groinal, you're having urges, you're having, sensations everywhere, and you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, this has got to be real, and I have it worse than everybody else. No, you don't. Why? Because OCD is OCD. And a lot of healing from this, and a lot of figuring out how to move on from this, is learning that fact and taking all of that pressure off of yourself, thinking that you're somehow some sort of exception. That you're somehow the one person that this is going to turn out to be the reality for. Now, of course, those are fears. And of course, we don't want to entertain them in a way that's providing reassurance. But you aren't alone. And until you can really start to learn how to just let that dialogue not have meaning, you're going to stay stuck in the cycle. When I went through therapy, that was one of the biggest things for me. It was this, because I had two fears. I had HOCD and I had the fear of vomiting. And I pitted one over the other until I was triggered by one and could see, oh my God, I'd rather have the other one right now. People think that one fear is worse than the other until it morphs into something different. And then they're like, oops. I'm going to tell you a really funny story. So I still get triggered by the vomit fear. I also get triggered by sexual intrusive thoughts all the time. And I get the groinal still, and sometimes it zings me and I'm like, whoa. But I just know what it is now, and I know how to not do compulsions when it comes. But I was triggered a few weeks ago by vomiting. And I'm talking to one of my friends. She lives with the fear of snapping and harming her children. And she's a great support for me. So if you're watching, you know who you are that I'm talking about. You know the story I'm about to tell. So on the phone with her, triggered to hell. That is what I am in that moment. I am feeling like I just want to die. I cannot deal with this. Like I had been completely exposed. I thought I was going, there's a huge chance I'm going to get this horrific virus. And I'm sitting there in the midst of the anxiety. I mean, just swimming in it, like trying not to drown. And I'm on the phone. I know she was just trying to be sweet and like try to bring it down a little for me, but she was like, I mean, it could be worse. You could have the fear that you would snap and harm your kids. I mean, it could, and I was in my brain in that moment. I was like, and I said out loud to her, whatever, if you stabbed one of your kids, they would heal. It would just be a flesh wound. Now, I know the absurdity of that. I know the absurdity. But in the moment, it completely illustrates the logic of trying to compare someone in the height of anxiety and OCD to something else. In that moment, I would have given anything to have feared I would have pulled out a knife and hurt somebody because I couldn't handle the amount of anxiety going on with this fear. So it's that is one example, and I'm sure that if you have morphed OCD fears, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that one doesn't feel worse than the other and one doesn't come with a lot more shame or whatever. I've already said that, but delegitimizing what one person is feeling because they are living in the same anxiety you do is doing nothing but trying to reassure that yours somehow is worse, and that may mean you can't get better. And what I'm trying to say is, that is what you have to start letting go of. This is not about whether or not you think you're going to turn into a pedophile, or whether you're going to turn into a violent killer, or whether you're going to turn gay, or whether you have sinned against Jesus or whatever else. This is not about that. This is about living with OCD. These are themes of one illness. One. And so being able to compartmentalize in your brain, there's one area you've got to work on. It is not going to easily let you just go down that path. It's going to pull you in all directions and give you all kinds of sensations so you can doubt it. But I'm here to tell you that that's how you have to start thinking in order to get better. It's easy to get swept away in the emotion and the grief. Easy. Hello. I have been there. I have been there for a long, long time. But in getting treated for OCD, when you're thinking about going into ERP, when you're looking to start to drop the fight, which I'm going to touch on really quick, when you're looking to start doing that, you've got to be able to decipher between what's going on in your brain over here, all this chaos and the black and white thinking, from I have a legitimate illness that requires treatment and medication. I cannot fight it on my own. I can't just wish it away. I'm not going to go to bed one night and wake up and it's going to be gone. This is a serious illness. You've got to get some treatment. You've got to talk to the professionals that know how to treat this. So lastly, oh God, I have like 3 minutes. I'll speed up. I just want to give you a couple things, a couple little tidbits that I've come up with in the last couple weeks that actually have helped me in thinking about the way that OCD affects me. And if you're watching this, the person that I was talking about this, you're going to know exactly what I'm about to say. The analogy of the Tug of War came up when I was talking to somebody this past week. And when I was thinking about OCD and how all you're doing is fighting in your head, one of the things that came up for me today as I was thinking about more is, if someone tells you your entire life you are ugly, I mean, from the day you're born, one person tells you all your life, you're ugly, you're ugly, you're ugly, you're ugly, every day. Okay? Yes, you are going to grow up thinking, I'm ugly. That's the way you're viewing the world. That's the way you think the world views you. That's your place. You have the ability to change that view. I know it's hard. I am not saying, just wake up and change, like a lot of people do. That's such bullshit. But in understanding that if someone is telling you something, you have a choice to believe it. And if every day you decided to get up and say, I'm not ugly. Maybe I'm cute, maybe I'm pretty, maybe I'm beautiful, whatever you decide that you want to see yourself as, you gave up the fight. You stopped fighting with somebody that's telling you that every day and you're like, no, I'm not, no, I'm not, no, I'm not. You made the choice to go, okay, well, maybe I am in your eyes. But I'm going to choose to think this. And you drop that rope. And the fight ends. So what if, with OCD, and trust me, I am not trying to tell you how to manage OCD. I am not a therapist. Trust me, 100%. But what I'm saying is this, is that if you're struggling right now and you're thinking to yourself that your OCD is telling you over and over and over, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, participating in the fight continues this tug of war back and forth. It continues the tug of war. Every time you do a compulsion, you're reinforcing that the fight is still on. What can you do to drop the rope? How can you stop the fight in your brain? You can do that by working with a professional who can teach you tactics, medication that may help give you a little bit of an edge. There are workbooks out there, John Hirschfield, Jonathan Grayson, workbooks you can get and start looking into some clinical perspective of people that know what they're doing. Not those stupid books that tell you to snap a damn rubber band on your hand. Those are not evidence-based. Do the research on ERP therapy, on acceptance commitment therapy. Start to research how you can get better. You deserve it. You deserve to get help and treatment. Now, I know oftentimes you don't have the funds to be able to do therapies, but what can you do in the meantime? What books can you read? Who can you follow that gives evidence-based research, evidence-based strategies on how to manage every single day? There are a lot of therapists out there that post great content. Now, I know it's imperative to get the right therapy, but at least if you're educating yourself, and it doesn't become a compulsion, but you're educating yourself on how to start gearing your brain, how to stop the fight. At least you're putting that effort in to push back on your brain and say, you know what, I can exist in the gray. It doesn't have to be the black and white. So consider therapy. Consider therapy, consider medication, but make sure you're doing it with someone that knows what they're doing. If a therapist says they treat OCD and they're not doing ERP therapy, they don't know what they're doing. Don't trust them. Don't give them money. Research where to go. Look for books from Jonathan Grayson, John Hirschfield. Go to OCDLA.com, OCDonline.com. These are places you can trust. They know evidence-based research and moving forward. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. And I'm going to tell you this. If you need help finding a therapist that is experienced, I help vet therapists. I do consultations for referrals in your state, in your country, or if there aren't any, I can find therapists that will do online Skype therapy. I also do peer support to help support and normalize what you're going through. So if you're interested, go to ChrissyHodges.com or email me at ocd.chrissie, CHRISSIE@gmail.com. My last message, and I gotta go. My last message is this. I know it sucks and it's daunting to feel like we have OCD for life. It is terrifying because you think if I have OCD for life, I will suffer for life. But life can be good. You don't have to have OCD dictate everything in your life, and you don't have to be the face of OCD. It can just be a part of your life, and you can manage it, and you can be happy and productive and deal with anything that life gives you that isn't just completely tainted by OCD. So thank you for being here. I have to go, but I will see you next week. Bye.